Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality with Michael Cole, the podcast that shines a compassionate light on the journey of veterans battling through life's challenges. Michael is a dual elite certified neuroencoding specialist in coaching and keynote training presentations, dedicated to guiding military veterans as they navigate the intricate pathways of post-deployment life. Join him as we delve into the profound realm of neuroencoding science, empowering these brave individuals to conquer universal battles, procrastination, self-doubt, fear, and more. Together, let's uncover the strength within you to re-engage with families and society, forging a new path forward.
Hello, everybody. We have one of my all-time favorites on today. I just have to say, we were talking a minute ago for 20 minutes, and it felt like we already did the podcast. So I get extra time with my dear friend, Brenda Warren. Brenda is a retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant with decades of leadership and life experience. She's an author. She's a leadership mentor and a transformational coach focused on mindset, which is so important. And of course, don't even get me started on resilience. Brenda helps veterans and high performance navigate major life transitions with clarity and purpose. And of course, she teaches practical mindset tools that create real lasting change, not just motivation. So my dear friend, I know I've already said some amazing things. We're going to talk about Make the Shift today. And will you tell us just a little bit more about yourself before we really get rolling?
Well, since the last time we talked, Michael, I got ordained, so I'm officially a minister now, which is really pretty cool. I am also an award-winning author now, which is another thing that happened since then. And I took a break. I decided to give a talk about how 80% of strokes can be prevented and that African-American women are really susceptible to those. And then I decided I needed to test that out. I'm happy to say I'm still here and that I am on this side of being healthier than I've been in a very long time. I'm working on losing weight and getting my mindset right so that I can be the best version of myself and created a lifestyle that will be sustainable.
I absolutely love it. And I know we talked a lot about this before the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's such a blessing, right? Because I can't even imagine Brenda, the solutionist,
Mm-hmm.
Not in my life. I just can't even imagine it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So I thank God and obviously praying for just continued health and so on. So amen. So let me ask you actually, before we start, I almost totally forgot. I was just going to jump in. I get so excited when we're going to talk. I mean, it's sharks. Who knows what we're going to talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the top right-hand corner, there is a blue QR code that takes you to empowerperformancestrategies.com for people listening on the podcast forums after the show. Again, empowerperformancestrategies.com. We have free ebooks I've written, trainings, Facebook groups for both veterans and their families. Come join, be part of the mission. Please let it help it grow. So with that said, tell us just a little bit. I know this isn't, how we roll. we prepare questions, but we just talk. So let's start with, if we can, before we get into the main topic. What got you into, Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant, obviously retired. What moved you into this industry and this calling, if you will?
Frustration. I did not see the support that I wanted for myself. We always say coaches need coaches when you and I talk. And as I went and navigated through all the different things, as I was building this opportunity to help me de-stress, which was what it was all about. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I needed something to keep me on this side of alive, just telling the truth. But I could not find real support with real answers that wasn't gatekeeping. So I said, I'm going to open the gates and I'm going to create an environment that allows, especially veterans, to get the support they need.
Amen. And you know what? I'm going to say this. There's a lot of new support out there that wasn't there before, and there's so much more needed. So I love that you're doing what you're doing, and obviously it's my calling as well. So with that said, should we talk about Make the Shift?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So when you're talking about Make the Shift, right? what does it actually mean at a practical day-to-day level, especially for veterans, coming out of structure and certainty, to coming back to civilian life and that reintegration process?
Well, practically, it means moving from a place of waiting on orders to actually issuing your own orders. You have to shift from the I have to, which is obligation, to I choose to, which is autonomy. It's not just being different, but it's doing things different because you're going to become a different person.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk more about that. You're coming out of the military, and everybody's different, right? And let's include families here. So you come home, and your partner's different, your kids are different, your mom and dad are different, you're different. When you're making that shift, how do you kind of integrate so everybody's on the same page?
I think first it's good, open, honest communication. Because remember, when we're in the military, our why is given to us. But once you get out, you have to establish your own why. Why am I going to this career? Or what is the difference in how my family's going to function? And if we can begin to have those clear, open conversations with our significant others, with our children, with our family members, and also give them the ability to support us as we are pretty much on shifting ground that we're not familiar with.
Yeah. Amen. And that's what I found. Stories are different, patterns are very similar, right? Is you're trying to figure out who you are now.
Who you are now.
Yeah. So can we talk about, a little bit of your reintegration or transition? I know it's been a day or two ago because, you're
the thing is, I thought about just the other day, I have been out longer now than when I was in, because I got out in 2000, and I was blessed to be blessed with having a child that I was told I never would be able to have because of different injuries and stuff. And Alex is now 25 years old. I cannot believe that. So I was in for 20 years, but now I've been out 25.
That math doesn't add up, Brenda, because you're 28, right? One more year?
Oh, absolutely not. I am 63 years old and excited to be there. You're looking at a kid that was told they wouldn't live to their 10th birthday, but that's another story for another day. However, I'm still here.
Amen. And thank goodness you are.
That's the grace of God right there.
Amen. You're one of my favorites, my friend. You absolutely are in this world. So let's get back to making the shift, right? So when you came out of the military, and how did you make the shift? And what were some of the, even more importantly, because us, we like to talk about the dark to the light. So what were maybe some of the struggles? Because obviously you made the shift because you're absolutely here and amazing. So what were some of the struggles, and how did you deal with those?
Let me tell you, when I got out, the struggle was real and it was hard because I was like a fish out of water. I came out of here a Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant, where I told people when to jump, and they asked off what and how high. I was used to getting things the day before I asked for it, and don't question me. And I went into a civilian hospital as an administrator, and let me tell you, drama and kaflama. I was called to HR so much, I just put a chair next to the door. But I was very fortunate that I was given a boss that was a retired naval officer. And he would call me in, and he called me Gunny because he knew the transition was rough. He said, Gunny, you can't do that. And he began to mentor me and teach me. But the struggle was long and hard. And then I began to meet other veterans inside the hospital I work with that I could go to when I was frustrated, because civilians don't think like us. Their words are different. How they show up is different. They're what I saw as lazy, lackadaisical attitudes made me want to take them outside and slap them in unison. But you can't do that in the civilian world. You couldn't in the Marine Corps, but not here. Anyway.
So I literally pictured slapping in unison. It was a little bit Three Stooges kind of, but
Three Stooges
with power and strength.
Yeah, it would have been something that would have gave me great joy. However, I had to learn how to talk to people, lower my voice, not be so direct. And I learned very quickly, thanks to Steve. That's his name was Steve Heron. Still is. He's still alive. Thank God for Steve. He would say, Gunny, your mission is, and when he said that, boom, military clicked in,
Right.
to never let them see you sweat. What? And he says, I need you to approach this like it's a mission, because if you say it's a struggle, it's a fight. But if you make the shift, it's a mission. Now, my new mission was to navigate the civilian world, the place that made me go through so many mental gymnastics. Mike, I'm telling you, even today, I should have got an Olympic gold medal, but I'm still here to talk about it.
I absolutely love it. So, I do want to say this. It's really such a beautiful blessing when you look back and think about certain people and how they impacted and changed your life.
Absolutely.
It's especially when you're struggling with something, whether you're a civilian, military, retired, whatever the case may be. Again, it's very, very similar. It's such a blessing when you go back and say, yeah, that changed my life. Yeah, I wouldn't be here where I am now if that didn't happen, or that struggle didn't happen. Because if you didn't struggle, you wouldn't know the struggle, right? You don't know until you know.
No. My fellow veterans that were already working at the hospital, that had been there for years, had already been through the struggle. So they were able to pull me to a side and keep me. I actually worked at the hospital for 13 years. I was able to get 7 raises, won awards, became a very valuable member of the community. But when I first started, let me tell you, those people were ready to run me out of that hospital with my military thinking, my military bearing, discipline, and the way I wanted things done, dress right, dress. But also I was able to take a lot of the things I learned in the military, creating SOPs, cross-training people, things that they had not heard of. So they're finding that balance of what I could and couldn't do, what I could and couldn't say, and discovering my identity as a veteran and how it applied to being a civilian was long and hard fought, which is why I brought some. I'm gonna share with you later 2 books that I wish I had when I retired.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I think I have one of those books. Pretty sure. Anyway, so let's talk about community, right? And making the shift, right? Because when isolation happens, trouble happens. We all know that.
Yes.
So, and if you don't, you do now. So pay attention. Pay attention to isolation. It's a problem.
Yeah,
so
don't isolate.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to anybody. Reach out, literally. So with that, you brought in that piece. So how much does making the shift impact not only you and your community and the resources that you create, so you're not isolating? How much does that impact not only for you but the people around?
It impacts them tremendously, because if you don't make that shift, what happens is we're still fighting our last war, our last mission while we're in the military. As opposed to creating success, we create casualties around us, because we begin to treat our colleagues and our families like subordinates and soldiers, or Marines in my case. And when you do that, that is a recipe for disaster, miscommunication, and hurt feelings. So it's important that we don't isolate and stay stagnant in our thinking in a way that keeps us attached to the past and not moving forward to our future.
Absolutely. I love you said that, because really trauma is not that something happened over and over again. It's because it happened, but you keep thinking about it over and over again, and it's stuck in the brain, right? I'm not going to go into all the science of it, but that's really what trauma is. It's just reliving the same incident over and over again.
And coming out the military, that is traumatic.
Yes. No, absolutely. It's funny. I was talking to another great friend, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tina Parker. She's been on the show as well. And when I was first starting to do this, and she was really just saying, man, I wish there was somebody that was there when you are reintegrating, just because you're trying to figure out who you are and what you're going to be, and that identity that you were talking about before, right? So it's so important to find that. A lot of people think of military as it's a job, right? I'm talking about military personnel themselves. So because the outside world doesn't necessarily think that, right? They think
Mhm.
heroes and all the other amazing things that, in my opinion, you are. So what are some of the things that you would say, again, making the shift, that with that the identity, which I think, like I believe you said, is one of the most important things to realize what that is. How do you find your new identity? Let's start there, and then we're going to move into how do you really step into that.
I think one of the things for me was to stop thinking tactical versus thinking transformational, because words matter. They've always done for me. The words in the military were all about execution, where in the civilian community, it was about evolution and transformation. And I had to understand that my self-talk mattered. I know you know about this because our bodies, our brains follow the language that we use. So I'm very careful about the orders that I give myself. I don't give myself bad orders. That if you think you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. So understanding the importance of my identity began to play a part in what I said about myself and what I said about those around me. Because the reality is, don't tell nobody, but I used to think that civilians were lower than pool scum because they had no discipline. They just had no loyalty. They had no camaraderie. They were every man for themselves. It was one of the most traumatic things that happened to me, shifting from teamwork and selflessness and mission first to getting people that I felt were selfish and lacked communication and didn't understand teamwork and couldn't spell it if I gave it to them on a plaque.
I'm sorry, yes.
That's the truth for me.
No, I get it.
Learn how to change what I was saying about not just myself, but by what I was saying about others, so that I can get clear on my identity. And I'm gonna bring that book in now because I'm gonna show you one of them that I have with you. This one right here, Becoming a Veteran by a Veteran, retired Air Force personnel, Lisa DeShoram. This right here, I wish I had this book when I got out, because it is so important that we understand we're never going to be civilians. What we have as military people is so unique, so profound, and that's why we're able to succeed so well when we get out into the civilian community. And most of us don't embrace it because a lot of us come from a place of shame around it, that when we get out there, we don't know how to navigate. And having these type of resources, and this book in itself not only is a resource, but it has tons of resources in the back for veterans that I really say, if you can't go on Amazon and get this book, you will not regret it. Becoming a Veteran.
I don't have that book. I'm getting it.
Okay.
I need to read it. The other book, I'm sure I have, though. Anyway.
I would tell you, it's a guide to embracing your veteran identity, which is why I think it's so important. One of the things I told the authors, they really need to work on getting this into our TAP program or the VA or something, because every veteran needs to have this, because it's written from a veteran's perspective, but they really go into deep detail that we can't go in this thing about why our identity is so important.
I absolutely love that. So with that said, let's talk a little bit more about that, right? You're transitioning out, you're making the shift, you're figuring out who you are becoming or want to become, who you would love to become, if you will. Because so many people are so fixated on what they don't want, they're not focusing on what they want.
Yes.
And I promise you, if you're not focused on what you want and all the other stuff, you're just going to stay literally focused on that stuff. So can we talk a little bit about focusing on all of the aspects of what you bring out of the military? You touched about this a little bit earlier, and I just wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit to that. All of the amazing things that maybe you don't realize that you hold as superpowers coming out of the military. You talked about SOPs, talk about all these things other people don't know about, and how you can really use that to your advantage.
Yeah, because inside the military, we learn to overcome and adapt. When you get into a civilian environment, when you are looking at the the procedures. One thing that I loved about being in the Marine Corps is that it gave me clear strategies, structures, and systems that I did not often find in the civilian community. I was able to implement strategy, structures, and systems within my job, which made me look like a rock star. My ability to build community, which or camaraderie, teamwork in the civilian world, all
Right.
those things, the logistics that we learn in the military, because we have to move things, make things happen in places. You can bring all of that. Your problem solving skills. The military teaches you that. We've been given a mission, but we're not just looking at this. We're thinking before, during, and after. So all of the skills that you learned inside the military will translate well into the civilian world. They just may need a little bit of a tweak so that you can fit into a community that may not be used to your directness or your sense of urgency that the military always puts it. Because, we know hurry up and wait, but we also know do it now and shut up and get it done.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's maybe talk about that. When you're again making the shift, what does it look like? How do I say this? When you're making the shift, what does it look like when you're really just trying to, let's say, figure out what you want to do, right? And this is a big shift here, okay?
Because that's a big shift.
It is.
You got you were assigned. If you're like most people, the military assigns your MOs. They tell you what you're going to do based on your asset for. When you get out, you experience the first time maybe in 20 years of having the ability to decide what you want to do. And it may not have anything to do with your military occupational specialty, and so now it's important that I always ask people I work with, I have them take strength finders. I'm really a proponent of that because I know it helps us figure out what your strengths are, which is also can help us guide you into a career that would be more suitable to you. Yeah. So I tell people, take that first 5 strength finders test. And if you want to take the whole test, that's possible. But for under $25, or if you buy the book, there's a code in the back, strength finders, and you can find out what your strengths are. And it gives you a whole bunch of information so that you can pick something that's going to be fulfilling. It's important to do that, to look for coaches or other veteran services that are allowing you to really think about what you want. I have 5 questions I always ask anybody, be there veteran or civilian. What do you want? Why do you want it? How does it benefit you? How does it benefit others? And what are you willing to do to make it happen?
And those, I got God bumps, goosebumps. Truly, because if you don't think about those things, you don't know the why. You sometimes won't have the drive. How is it going to impact people? It is a super important question, because when you're looking for fulfillment, isn't that the best? Is the people you're going to impact? Isn't that where you find the most fulfillment, is by helping others and serving? Isn't that why you probably joined the military, unless you were drafted back in the day? Yeah. Right? So I love that you said that. Talk a little bit more about fulfillment, if you will. And I love that word, right?
I like the fulfillment part because it's about doing what lights you up. I call it soul alignment. One of the things that my friend Lisa tells me often is how for veterans, we spend 20 years or whatever time you spent in there, and then you get out, and most of us end up with no less than 6 jobs, because for the first time we can make a choice. And the first time you get out, especially if you have a family, you may just get the first job that you come to because you got to pay those bills. But then after you get through that, then you may get to a point where I don't like this. Now, what do I need to do that's going to fulfill me and help me walk out now? Because you're thinking purpose more than service. And it's both, it's tied together, but you want to do something that gives you that sense of fulfillment. And I always say, find that thing that you would do whether they paid you or not. And if they pay you for it, that's a bonus. And a lot of times, because of financial pressures, we don't often look for that. And I think it's so important. And that's why I wish they had financial planning training for military, especially young military folks in the beginning, so that when they get out, that they're prepared for the financial impact that leaving the military is going to cause. Because many people don't be thinking you're no longer going to get housing allowances or different things that we get in the military that we take for granted. Right. And then you get out and you really have to manage a budget in the civilian community, and you don't have any financial training. It can be devastating to you and your family.
You know, I that is so important. I mean, why isn't it just taught in high school? I mean, truly,
let
alone, where you're a little more mature and you're about to go, go into real life, if you will, as a civilian, whether you're, 20 years old and joined at 18, or you're, 50 years old and you're retiring, whatever the case may be. I think we need to talk to somebody. Somebody that's listening, talk to somebody. Get this in there.
Let me tell you this financial thing, because hopefully somebody will hear this. When I joined the military and they told me I got direct deposit and we talked about it, I thought that meant that I just had all this money. So I bounced a whole bunch of checks because I did not know anything about direct deposit. Now, mind you, I had been running business since I was 9 years old. So I had some money information, but I didn't have it all. And I think it's important. I thank God that my training later on in the military from a trusted staff NCO that taught me about investments and everything the best they knew how. But it wasn't until I met Steve Herron when I got out 20 years later that I got real information on how to make investments. And I'm happy to say it was an education and an eye-opener. I now use credit cards like checks. If it's not in my account, I don't put it on my credit card. So I've been out of credit card debt for years. Yeah. But in the military, we're not taught those things. So a lot of people live in paycheck to paycheck when we truly do not. One day we have to come in and talk about the finances, because military people are not given information on all the stuff that's available to us. Again, in that book, there's a lot of resources there that can save us a lot of money, a lot of hurt feelings, and help us develop a financial plan that will suit us now and far into our futures.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And when you're talking about it, it brought up another guest and friend of mine, Thomas Solano. So if you're a veteran or doesn't matter what stage of life, literally, look him up or check out one of our podcasts. He's been on it multiple times, and that's exactly what he does. So I think that's a really cool resource. Thanks for talking about the
It's never too late to become fiscally responsible. Some people, I don't care how much debt you're in. At one point, I was $180,000 in credit card debt. Yeah. And I'm not. I have zero credit card debt now.
Amen. Use the credit card, build your credit, pay it off the same day. That's what I do. We're close to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Build that credit, though. Absolutely. So we're getting close to the end of the show, unfortunately, because time just flies when it's you and I. So with that said, is there anything else about making the shift that you want to talk about specifically?
I would think that if military people could realize that their rank and their title and their time in the service was simply a chapter in their life. It's not the whole story. We have so much more once we get out, so many more chapters to write in the stories of our life. I always say you have the pen to write the story of your life. You might as well make it an epic adventure. Don't make it a horror story. Don't make it a comedy. Well, unless you want to have some fun, you can do a little bit of that in there. But the main thing is to understand that we don't have to live in our past. We can take our past with us and build a future that's allowing us to look through the windshield and not at the rearview mirror. Because looking back, reflection, that's important. And when I think of reflection, I just think for the military folks that'll understand this, that's simply your after action report. That's what reflection simply is, your personal after action report, so you can look at your life. Building intel on what you used to do so that it can serve what you're currently doing is so important to us being successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Learn from the past, but don't focus on it, because that doesn't do anybody any good. And if you keep driving in the rearview mirror and that's all you're looking at, you will crash. You will crash. So with that said, can you tell us, do you have anything upcoming, anything that you're working on that people can get in on? Working with you?
I think for veterans, what I've been working on, I'm gonna show this book again because I've been trying to get every veteran I know to get this book, Becoming a Veteran, a guide to embracing your veteran identity. And for veteran business owners, becoming a veteran business influencer. these two books right here are two books I wish I had. Now I do have them in my library, and they both are filled with resources that every veteran should have access to, especially when you're coming out, because it will really get you thinking about how important what you think is. It will get you to ask the questions of, who do I need to become to live the life I'm building? Not who I was, but who am I truly becoming? And how do I incorporate everything that I already know, possess, have learned, have endured to live my best life now, no opportunity wasted.
Absolutely love it. And they have the superpowers, right?
Mhm.
They're there. You've learned so much, and just learning how to impact and to put that into everyday life is a beautiful thing to move forward with. So
Can I just say real quick too? I want to add that I think when you're making the shift, you have to remember a couple of things. Is that you have to have a sense of self that will allow you to really look inside, to really get clear on who you are. What are your core values? What do you want going forward outside of somebody telling you what to do? And because when you get clear on your core values, that will help you make decisions for your yeses and your nos. And no is a complete sentence. By having clear boundaries on what you say no to can open you up to yeses that will extend your possibilities.
Absolutely love that you said that. Thank you for saying it. It's beyond important. So that was a beautiful golden nugget there at the end. So with that said, how do people reach out to you, Brenda?
You can find me at Brenda the Solutionist on most platforms. Brenda the Solutionist, SOULUTIONIST.
Awesome. And then with that said, we always ask for 3 tips to get veterans and their families further faster. Let's
see. 3 tips to help veterans get there faster. Number 1, communicate. It's communicate, like real estate, location. Communicate with your family. Take that first hour of the day and make it all yours. Be selfish enough to look inward before you turn on your electronics device or put any kind of information in. Go internal and get clear on what you need to stay grounded. Give yourself some peace. Stop looking at the transition mountain and all that. Just look at the next 10 minutes, the next hour, and be selfish enough to have the discipline to make sure your voice, and if you're a believer, God's voice are the first 2 voices you hear every morning. That's that. And I think number 3 is to embrace making the shift. It's something we had to do in the military. We lived in the pivot, because they'll tell you do this one way and then something changed. So embrace the pivot with your family and make sure that you take them along for the ride. The things we say that we're doing is because we want our families to be happy, safe, whole, secure, and feel loved. Then include them in the journey. They're strong enough to handle it. They don't went through you within the military. They can handle the civilian world, as long as you keep them informed and make sure that your decisions are based on the core values you say you have embraced for your family. And I believe everything should be fine.
I absolutely love that you said that. Because if you're sharing the journey with your family, guess what? You're not alone. You're not feeling alone in that connection. And I'm going to add it to it is, again, we talked about this earlier, the people around you. How do you think they feel when they're included in the journey? They feel connected. They feel part of it. Yeah,
I would say, I always tell people when I'm ending something, is that the choices that we make today will be the reality you live tomorrow. So choose wisely. And while you're making choices, I pray you choose to be kind to yourself and to others.
Absolutely love it, my friend. So with that said, we're like 5 minutes over, but I could just do another 6 hours. You're absolutely fantastic. I absolutely cherish our time together. I truly do, Brenda. Time is the most precious resource we have as human beings, and we don't get it back. And I'm so blessed to spend the time with you and for you to spend it with our audience. So as always, thank you absolutely so much for everything you do for us and the mission. So thank you.
You're welcome. Be blessed, everyone.
We're out.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful journey of Your Thoughts, Your Reality podcast with your host, Michael Cole. We hope the conversation sparked some thoughts that resonate with you. To dive deeper into empowering your thoughts and enhancing your reality, visit empowerperformancestrategies.com. Remember, your thoughts shape your reality, so make them count. Until next time, stay inspired and keep creating the reality you desire. Catch you on the next episode.